I'm Jay Horton. I make movies that make money. This is how. If you want to learn how to make more money with your indie film, subscribe now. Today I'm going to tell you how to deal with, and maybe more importantly, how not to deal with your distributor, aggregator, or sales agent on your indie film. Number one, and this is important for any good business relationship, make your expectations clear from the beginning. Just like a potential mate, tell the distributor what you expect out of the relationship before you sign. If you made a $150,000 movie and recoupment is your first priority, let them know that. And don't be afraid to ask them if they truly believe they can recoup it. Distributors come in all shapes and sizes. Some are built to handle larger budgets and movies with name talent. They promote their films and have established relationships with multiple platforms and buyers worldwide, limited theatrical releases, and all that jazz. Then there are smaller distributors that specialize more in streaming, that are great in dealing with movies with budgets well under $100,000. But they might not offer any other kind of support other than the placement of the movie. Recouping a larger budget with a smaller distributor like this could be very difficult. So be very clear as to what you expect. If you can't handle any promotion, you don't want to sign with a distributor that doesn't do any of it. And the only real way to find out is to ask. Now, rule of thumb, most indie distributors don't do much promotion anyway. And if they say they do, inquire about what they do. Ask them specifically what they do to promote their movies and ask for examples. Legit distributors won't mind answering questions. If they get defensive or weird, that's a major red flag. But maybe your main goal is not recoupment. Maybe it's a career building project and your goal is to get maximum exposure. There are distributors out there that have a lot of reach that will get your movie out all over the world. But as far as the back end goes, their deals maybe don't favor the filmmakers so much. One of my first horror movies was released by Anchor Bay. They got it out everywhere, and it did wonders for my career. But personally, I didn't see much money from that deal. And to be 100% honest, I can mostly attribute that to me being green and not knowing how to negotiate a contract. Oh, let me say this before I forget. Don't be afraid to negotiate the contract. Most distributors, even legit ones, will start you off with a boilerplate contract that usually favors the distributor. They expect you to negotiate. If you don't, you can't exactly blame them. Number two, understanding a distributor's role. Distributors are basically a middleman between you and the platforms. Understand that a distributor often has no control over when a movie goes live on a platform after they deliver. And they also have little control over how and when those platforms pay. I mention this because I often see other filmmakers giving their distributor a hard time over collection schedules that are completely outside of the distributor's control. Not all platforms pay at the same time or with the same frequency. Some, like Amazon, pay monthly, some quarterly, some bi-yearly, or even yearly. It's totally cool to question the distributor's payout practices, but it's important to understand the process from their point of view as well. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't question them. It's totally cool to question a distributor's payout practices and hold them to it. But it's important to understand the process from their point of view as well. Understand that ultimately, a distributor is the middleman. They are facilitating your placement on the platforms. That's about it. At the end of the day, they have little control over how long it takes for your title to appear or when the title pays. Now, platforms do give distributors placement preference over individual DIY distributing filmmakers, but it's not a golden ticket either. If a platform is experiencing delays in publishing projects, you're going to have to wait, regardless of whether or not it's through a distributor. That wait will most likely be shorter with a distributor, but it's still a wait. 3. Challenging and terminating the relationship. There are many bad distributors out there, and regardless of how careful we are or how much due diligence we do, we can choose unwisely. So what do you do when you realize you've chosen poorly and went with the wrong distributor? Well, the first step is to communicate. Let the distributor know that you are unhappy and let them know why. Give them the opportunity to fix the problem. If they won't or can't, then you should take the next steps. Legal disclaimer, I am not a lawyer. This is just what has worked for me in the past. Please consult an attorney before taking any of the following steps. First, send an official letter requesting to be let out of your contract. I sent one by email and then an identical one by registered mail at the same time. And sometimes this is all it'll take. But if you don't get the response you're looking for and they won't release you from the contract, it's time to step it up. Now, the first time this happened to me, I couldn't afford a lawyer. So I had to get a bit more creative. I took to IMDb. I looked up the distributor, found other films they had put out, and started reaching out to the producers of those films looking for others that were equally unhappy. After some time, I got lucky. I found 6 other filmmakers in the same boat, 2 of which were willing to take the next steps with me. So we banded together and wrote joint letters to the distributor again saying we were unhappy and all sent them off at the same time. We all stated why we were unhappy, we asked to be let out of our contracts, we demanded full accountings, and mentioned that we were recruiting other unhappy filmmakers to our cause. In this particular case, this is all it took. A few days later, the distributor released us from our contracts. Now, if this wouldn't have worked, we would have had to engage a lawyer, and we would have went from there. But in this case, all it took was a few filmmakers banding together and not backing down. Filmmaker tips from filmmakers. Last week, I went into a few Facebook groups and asked some other filmmakers for their tips when dealing with distributors. And here's what they said. Be polite and democratic, but also pragmatic, and make sure they respond to emails and any questions you may have for them. It is a two-way street, and the power dynamic needs to be equal for it to work. Okay. Treat your movie like a baby, and the distributor a babysitter. Ask for references, and do your research. Yeah. Don't sign over international rights. Negotiate down the years of their contract. Negotiate the percent. If they have a ridiculous high cut, make sure they aren't including some ridiculous marketing cap that can be anywhere from $15,000 and up. They will use this to justify sales to other markets of your film, and once they've sold up to $25,000 or whatever that marketing cap is, they will stop pushing your film as much because they've covered the marketing cap that they promised to pay themselves. Oh. Struggle in an uphill battle for any answers, understanding, decisions, or money. I think that's my favorite. If you want to learn how to make more money with your indie film, subscribe to my channel now. But whatever you do, keep making movies.